Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the council meeting on Wednesday, the 15th of May, 2024. I'd like to welcome councillors, staff, media, and all those who are listening in from home. Call for apologies, and I have one from Councillor Lovett. You'll move in a second. Have we received that? Councillor Todd, Councillor Macmillan, all in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Is there any extraordinary business? No. Declarations of interest in today's agenda? Nope. We'll move on to the minutes, page 3, and we'll check them for accuracy on page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6. Nothing needs to change. Move in a second that we receive those. Show them off as true and accurate record. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Hooper, all in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you. Next item is number 5, the Methven Community Board, and we'll receive these minutes as well. Someone like to move? Councillor Millen, Councillor Cameron, all those in favour, please say aye. Is there anything to discuss out of those minutes? Nope. Move on to the next item, number 6, Creative Communities Grants Assessment Rounds 2, 23-24 here. And we just need to receive those minutes. So I'd like to move. Councillor Todd, Councillor Hooper, all in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Any discussion on those minutes? No. We'll move on to item number 7, which is the review into the Ashburton Water Zone Committee. Welcome, Tony. And we asked for this review probably 6 months ago, perhaps, or less. The tail end of last year, I think. Yep. And the review is now being completed, which is good. So, Tony, have you got anything further you wish to add to your report?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
We'll go straight to questions. Councillors, questions? Councillor Macmillan.
Thank you, through the chair. I saw in your report that you did a survey and there were only 4 people that responded to the survey. Why do you think the uptake was so low?
Thank you, through the chair. So the survey was of the Water Zone Committee members only. It was closed to them. I think what probably happened was the timing with when ECAN announced their review. They also undertook a similar survey at what now sounds like it was at a similar time. But I had also interviewed some of the current members anyway, so I had incorporated their feedback that way.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Did you chase up? There's 11 members, am I correct, through the chair, for the on the Ashburton Water Zone Committee?
Yes, that's correct.
And 4 replied. Did you chase them up or do a follow on and they still refused to reply?
Through the chair, no, I didn't. The survey was really around just capturing impressions from the existing committee members. Probably where the real gold sat for this review was the in-depth discussions that I had with the interviewees.
So did you, that's why I'm asking the question. I've written here enough under the survey of existing committee. Do you think you got a true feel for the view of the committee members from 4 people, or did you ask 11 people? Was everybody asked questions, or was it just the 4?
Through the chair, all 11 members on the zone committee had the opportunity to participate in the survey, and I interviewed 3 directly. Okay.
And so you interviewed 3 directly. Are we allowed to ask who they are, or they're secret?
Thank you. Through the chair, no. The grounds of the interviews was that all the information was confidential and anonymous. I did interview also previous and former members of the zone committee, and some were quite frank in their feedback, and so that was part of the agreement.
Okay. When I read the survey and the questions that you've received, may I ask another question, please? I got the vibe that this zone committee isn't doing what it was set up to do, in terms that there was a comment that the Ashburton District Council input was either absent or not engaged, or that wasn't written in the remarks.
Thank you, through the chair. There's two real camps of feedback that I got through the work that we did for the review. One was that the zone committee should absolutely stay in its current form and no changes were needed, but that the district council was possibly missing in action and not participating as much as perhaps they might have expected. And then the other view that I got quite strongly from the review was that the zone committee structure was initially set up on quite noble and lofty grounds of this extensive process involving collaboration to solve a pretty wicked problem. Initially, I think the mana of the zone committee was a lot higher when it was initially established, and some expressed a view that over time that is diminished. Some even made the linkage between that diminishment occurring about the time when the commissioners were leaving Environment Canterbury. They felt they were given much more kudos and mana as a zone committee under commissioners.
And then under ECAN. And are the catchment collectives and all those other groups now more empowered?
Through the chair, catchment collectives are a relatively new phenomena to our district, but they have existed elsewhere throughout the country in different forms for a number of years. I think the catchment collective is possibly an evolution of more on-the-ground type solutions to water quality issues at quite a localised level. There is a view, and it's possibly one that I have now landed at as well, that we need to be very careful that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater around the zone committee, and there's probably still quite a need to make sure that we've got good freshwater leadership and with good representation of the district's needs.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's a couple of comments I'd just like to confirm with you on. One is around the Mid-Canterbury Catchment Collective. Their funding, when does it run out? I understood it was...
June 2025, as I understand it.
If they left the building, effectively, that would be a big hole in that space. Is that fair to say? If they didn't have funding, you know...
From a zone committee perspective, they're fulfilling a certain role. Potentially, yes, that could leave a gap there, especially with the momentum that the catchment collectives do seem to be gaining at the moment within the district.
And the other area I'd like to explore too is the relationship between District Council, the community and ECAN. There's a few comments, which are quite disturbing comments, that some of the parties have a better place to engage with ECAN. It almost felt like you, zonal committee members, which is the District Council, we can get in at a better place to you now, so we don't need to partake in this. That was just a concerning thought to me, that we're being sidelined effectively for the District Council and ECAN's talks.
Through the chair, I think it comes back to that perspective of legitimacy and the role and the esteem in which the zone committee has held it, and the ability for it has to better change policy and set direction at that regional type level that can then flow into the district space. Again, it's people's impressions and their perspectives. What actually might be real or true or otherwise, the proof is in the pudding there.
My last question: would there be worth a comment that has, where is our point of contact in that water with ECAN? You know, when does this district, when do we get to push back or to, you know, actually get involved? Lots of I use the creek, Green Street Creek thing. That only happened because it came through the media. Well, where would that point happen?
Question there, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, well, the question is, where would that happen without the zone committee? So I'm asking, where would that happen?
It's probably a question I can't fully answer. I would expect a lot of it is going to be issue specific, but the role of the zone committee in that particular matter, I'm not sure if they were the one driving the desire and the media attention that received, or that was driven at a more localised level on the ground.
Hamish?
I think one of the things to note as you contemplate these questions in this review, and if you accept the recommendation to be folded into ECAN's review, is that the zone committee is a joint committee. That's a 50-50 partnership with ECAN and the Ashburton District Council, and if it hasn't felt like that for a number of years, then we've got some role to examine how we regard and deal with the zone committee and resource it and work with it. Whereas I think at times it feels much more like an ECAN thing But in reality, it's a joint committee of this council and ECAN, and so that's something to keep in mind as we grapple with how it can continue to deliver real value, and perhaps we have a role to play in its ongoing relevance to water management because it is a joint committee.
Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. And is it true that the Water Zone Committee had sort of quite a narrow focus in the area they looked after, predominantly sort of Hinds to the Ashburton River, from the other side of the county, from the Ashburton River to the Rakaia River? Very little work done as far as Water Zone was concerned.
Through the chair, probably to be fair to the zone committees and their work and achievements to date, a lot of the more pressing issue and need was south of the Ashburton River at that point in time, hence their focus and their attention. But the zone committee is based on its terms of reference for the entire district, river to river, mountains to sea.
And this report will feed into ECAN's report, and they're due to have theirs completed in November.
Yes, that's
So then
correct.
we'll probably need to uplift something and make a final decision whether it stays or whether it goes, and if it stays, and what format it will stay in later in the year.
Yes, correct. So I'm keeping in touch with the team that are undertaking the review at Environment Canterbury, and also feeding in interim discussions with them about what my findings have been to date. They are looking to deliver to the Canterbury Mural Forum in November 2024. They are considering that there may not be a one-size-fits-all way to address the issues at hand, and it may need to be quite a specific solution for each respective district or zone.
Which makes sense too. Hamish?
Just to confirm, ECAN are doing a review of the zone committee system and structures right across the ECAN region, so they're not doing a specific review of Ashburton, they're doing all of them. And the Mural Forum is the sponsor for the zone committee system, and I know the Mural Forum, the next meeting in the end of this month, is getting an update from ECAN on where they're at with their review, so there will be 3 or 4 opportunities to get some visibility of the review in a more formal way at a political level, but before dropping to their final position by November. Yeah.
No further questions? Thank you, Tony. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to move.
Right,
but-
thank you, Tony. Moved, Councillor McMillan, the recommendation there. Seconder, Councillor Brown. Open for debate, discussion. We're going to receive this Ashburton Water Zone Committee review report and provide the report to Environment Canterbury for consideration as part of their review as well. So can we speak to it?
Yeah, I'll
Councillor?
just speak to it. I think that the work that Tony did was good. It's given us sort of an overview of what our committee does, but I think it's sensible to wait until Environment Canterbury do a review of all the zone committees, and we get an update at the end of this year.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron?
Thank you, and I concur. I think when you read the report, you get the feeling of a little bit of apathy from the committee meetings, or being disheartened, and I wonder if that's a reflection on why there was such a poor response to the survey, because 11 reimbursed members, we should get more than 3 people that reply to the survey, I would have hoped. I also think it's important that as a district we maintain some semblance of insight and management of our water, by this committee or some other form, and I'd like to see that something's retained in some form.
Yeah, we'll pick this up again later in the year once Environment Canterbury's reviewed all the zone committees and see what the next steps are. Any further speakers for or against? Right to reply, not needed. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next item number 8, update on Lakewood water quality. Welcome, Tanya Neal. It's quite an in-depth report there. Questions, councillors? Or anything further to add? No. Questions? Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I've got a few questions, but just shut me up when you've had enough. There's a whole, it appears to me, through reading the report, it appears to me through reading the report that there's no one single solution, and there's a whole lot of multiple solutions, and we cannot simply flush it out. Or the only solution that seems resoundingly to be successful would be to drain the lake for a significant period of time, which is obviously not tenable for the people that live around there and for people that use the lake for recreation purposes. When they talk about, when you're reading the dissolvable phosphates, they talk about Carter's Creek and the intake from the river. Is that the river water also has phosphates in it as well? Because we're not putting a buffer at the river mouth, at the river intake.
Yeah, yes, so you're correct. We're talking about Carter's Creek and the
Yeah.
river water.
And river water.
And the
as well.
river water, the water that's taken in. But Carter's Creek, generally when it's flowing, particularly in flood flows, that's when you get the highest level of phosphorus overflow into the creek.
So we're going to put, though, for a trial, put a phosphate buffer thing at the river intake as well,
No, sorry, just at Carter's Creek.
just at Carter's Creek. So that's not going to resolve the issue really either, is it?
Not with the river water, no.
And then they've talked about in here about putting stuff on the bottom of the lake. You know, I've just gone past it.
It's one of the suggestions.
One of the suggestions, a whole lot of suggestions. But that sounds like it would be a suffocating thing. And you have to repeatedly do it. That sounds costly because the lake's big. Is that correct?
Incredibly costly, yes. It's more of a short-term measure. There's long-term and short-term measures. Short-term measures such as locking up the phosphorus will likely have to be repeated, and you're correct, will be very expensive long-term. But we do have a dual problem here in phosphorus. The legacy phosphorus is one of those issues. So just putting more water into the lake won't solve the issues.
Is it too premature to get an ET and sort of a idea of cost to manage the concerns out of the lake?
Hamish?
Just if I could just go back half a step. So this report is from NIWA around potential options. None of these things are currently happening or in train. So when we say we will put the phosphorus at Carter's Creek, that's not happening yet.
No.
Because this is just simply an options report, and you're receiving the options report. One of the things that we're trying to do as member of the task force is to distill the numerous options to bite-sized chunks of what can we do to make the biggest impact the soonest in a lasting way with resources that are available to us. So there is nothing in here that we have started or are about to do until we have resources appropriately allocated.
Oh, I thought we were going to put a buffer or something at the entrance of Carter's
Trial.
Creek for a trial.
There's been zone committee funding for a trial in Carter's Creek. That's what Councillor Cameron was referring to.
That's correct. That's what I'm referring to.
As a trial, but it's not a
No.
a permanent
No, I understand that.
intervention, if you like, other than and dependent on the zone committee grant funding.
But it seems a sensible first thing, to proof of concept thing.
Well,
Yeah.
possibly, remembering that Carter's Creek's dry at the moment, so there's no water running into Lake Hood with the current algal bloom from Carter's Creek at the moment.
Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, it's to do with, it probably follows on a wee bit from that same conversation. And item number 31, the AAPCT, which is Ashburton Aquatic Park Charitable Trust, they applied for money to the zonal committee. So who's actually doing this? Are we doing this, or are they doing this? Because and then I note in the very end of the document, which reinforces what the Chief Executive said, that officers will bring a further report to Council for funding options once mitigation options have been fully scoped and costed. Are they going ahead and doing it, or are we doing it? I just want to know, where is it sitting?
That's a good question. So the task force in itself is an illegal entity, so it couldn't apply to zone committee for funding. So the Aquatic Park Charitable Trust stepped up and said it would apply. We didn't think it would be appropriate for ADC to apply to zone committee for funding. So and that portion of Carter's Creek is on LHEP's land. So LHEP staff will be undertaking the physical work associated, but the trial's being done for the benefit of all the parties down there effectively.
Councillor Hooper?
Thank you. Page 35, point 11, while controlling nutrient loading and increasing the quantity of water coming into and circulating around the lake, have been the task force priorities. The task force recognised the need for more thorough scientific review before progressing further with any of these mitigation measures. I just wanted to know why, because what I hear is that the water going in and out of the lake is one of the best things that could be happening. So why isn't that ongoing when available anyway?
So the work has been going on in the background anyway, but we wanted the backing, I guess, of NIWA scientific experts to know. And one of the key points of this NIWA report was actually around making sure phosphorus was the key limiting factor in water quality. We all assumed it was, but NIWA have undertaken analysis of all the water quality testing and various results that we've got over years to actually confirm that. Without that, we could be doing all this, and it might be nitrogen that's the issue, and that's a whole different kettle of fish in terms of how we resolve that. So it's not as though we've put all the work on hold while we waited for NIWA.
Councillor Mackel.
Thank you. Put it to Ian McKenzie yesterday from ECAN, and the idea wasn't rubbished. And I'm wondering if we can do a little bit more homework on it. And we're looking at Hamish's comment, resources available to us, and we have a significant one, and that is the possibility of the Water Raceway water and the consent we hold in the channel up in the hills. And if that was flushed into the...
Question? Coming to a question?
Yes, it is the question. I'm wondering why it can't be looked at. If the water put into the Ashburton River, all the biodiversity from that consent and water will be going into the Ashburton River, flows down the Ashburton River. We won't be held or stopped by ECAN taking water flows in there if we already own the water in there. That amount of water goes, flushes Lake Hood. It's been written here that low or no flow from the river available, and we have a significant amount of investment tied up in that water, which possibly is coming on board. Why can we not look at utilising that resource?
If perhaps I could answer it, and if I get this slightly skewed, Tanya and Neil, please step in. Everything can be looked at. Our concern, and I know the task force's concern, if it involves a variation to a consent, or if it involves a new consent, then the time and the process to achieve that will likely not have any, would likely take a long time.
We have 3 years up our sleeve, Hamish.
Oh no, we've got, that could be part of the solution, but it's not likely that we will get that, if that requires consent, which in the case you described, I'm sure will require variations of consents, that's not likely to be a solution for next summer. So the real concern is if it involves resource consenting, then there won't be an early or a easy or a quick win. So it might well be part of the solution over time. What we're trying to do is consider all the options and try and do some things to improve the water quality now and in the future.
Yeah, but at the moment we're looking at spending a whole lot of money, where in a few years that could be coming on. We can be working with ECAN now, we can be working with iwi, it could be underway, instead of looking at all these other solutions that are very costly. And at the moment, Lake Hood is stagnating because there is no water flow.
To completely understand, and you summed up the problem really well, but if the solution involves a variation to a consent, that will not be a quick and easy process.
So I come back to 3 years, Hamish.
Yeah, that's right. But I think the task force and the council, as the owner of the lake, are trying to do a range of things, some of which will hopefully improve the quality of the water in Lake Hood in a shorter time frame than that 3 years. So I think there's a range of potential solutions, all of which may or may not be explored, But if it involves consenting, that's got a whole host of time issues that that need to be factored in. So it's a range of things that the task force is considering.
So what we could do is forward Councillor Mackle's suggestion to the task force to consider.
Sure.
Any further questions, councillors? If not, thank you for your report. And councillors, we have a report there that we received this report. So I'd like to move. Councillor Cameron, seconder. Councillor Wilson. Any debate, discussion? Councillor Wilson.
A discussion really. I just want to make sure that since we're taken over as the owners of the lakes, it's in a month's time, is that correct? We then have actually become in the driving seat to cleaning it up and to, because we'll ultimately, as the gatekeepers for the ratepayers, be paying for it. And I feel that some of the other organisations will have to realise that we are the number one person in the queue now. So we need to take that position when we've been given, not given it, we've taken it over, so we need to take it and move it forward rather than just let it be held how it's been in the past.
Yeah, one of the suggestions in there is flow. Flow is the issue. So solving the flow issue is a big first step, I think. It's probably the easy step is to get more water flowing in, but with the conditions on the river, it can't happen at the moment, so things need to change around consenting and low flows, etc. So there's some work to do, all right. Any further speakers for or against? We'll put the motion that we received that report. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. To page 100. Havelock Street Public Car Park Time Restriction. Welcome, Mark. Anything further to add to your report?
No, nothing to add.
Questions, councillors? Just have one question. It's parking in the same vicinity on the street next to this park. On the stenciled on the ground is Park 10. Look up at the sign. It says P120. They're not consistent. Would or should you change it?
Yes.
When do you think you'll do it? Oh,
I
Sure.
thought that had already been fixed, so should have gone and looked, but I will chase that up. It was just a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 10 was there for people that wanted to drop their books through the slot.
Which is the correct? Is it 120 or is it going to be 10?
Well, there's a one that's a P10 for returning your books through the slot.
So it'll stay as a P10.
Yeah.
Right. So move the 120 sign. Yeah. Further questions? Nope. Mover, thanks. Mover for the motion. That council declares a 120-minute time restriction area for the public car park on Havelock Street adjacent to Te Whare Whakatiri. So I'd like to move. Councillor Todd, Councillor Brahm. Discussion, debate.
There's some discussion on that. I see on Fair Go the other night there was a big article about the zealots and the people doing parking. So I'm sure our district, the chief executive, how we enforce the parking and how fair and reasonable we are.
Okay, you could answer it. There's a question there, but
It's a statement. I'm sure we are.
We enforce the parking restrictions that council has adopted. Yeah.
yeah, so the parking meter people will patrol this area as they do others. Yeah. Councillor Cameron.
It would, hopefully the parking meter people will also be reviewing the utilisation of those car parks, so that if this initiative proves to have a detrimental effect on people parking there or visiting the building, we are made aware of that and we can influence the changing or otherwise of that time. Yeah.
We can ask through the activity briefings what the usage or the ticketing is in this area, or is it fit for purpose? We could ask to do there. James?
I was just going to say to you, Mr Mayor, it's all going pretty well. The visitor car park next door is underutilised. I think perhaps people don't yet realise it's there and that it's available for public parking, even though it has got a sign there. But also diaried in for, I can't remember what month it is, but on the first anniversary of this building having opened, there will be a review of all of the CBD parking to take into account any changes that have arisen from this building.
But January next year would then be.
That sounds about right.
Yep. Is speakers for or against putting that parking limit on? I'll put the, Councillor Cameron.
We passed the motion, I think, or we looked at the motion, but it would be nice to have the review prior to changing the parking timelines when we are reviewing it. It seems, and may be entirely appropriate, and I think 120 minutes is, my feeling is it's a long time. But we are having a parking review in 6 months. We're making changes a little bit prematurely perhaps because we haven't reviewed the parking. And I remember we discussed it when we were over the other side of the road to do that.
Yeah, that's just what the officer said. We're going to review it after this building's been open for 1 year, parking in the CBD. But we won't change it until we've had the review. Motion, Councillor Ellis?
Just a question, sorry, on that. At the same time, because it's linked to this building and the changes since it's opened, should the mobile shop policy get another look at, since we have mobile shops in the vicinity of this building now? That so I know it was done last term, but now this building's open, maybe it deserves another look at.
If I could
Perhaps respond to that. That policy's only just, or relatively recently, been put in place. It's not due for a review yet, so council would have to resolve to have a review for us to bring that forward in the work program to review it before it's due. So if council had the will or the desire to have a review, then we would seek council's resolution to that effect to bring the review forward.
perhaps do the activity briefings would be the ideal time to ask for that then. Councillor Cameron?
Just to follow on to the Mayor's remark, when is this proposal being changed? I thought it was being changed nowish. You mentioned, Neil, we won't have it until we have the review, but we're moving this now.
All this is doing is putting a time limit on that new car park we've got.
To change.
Yeah.
There's no change. It's not change.
There's no change.
We're just putting something new in, essentially.
So you can,
Yeah. Oh, I would have considered that a review, but I suppose fair enough.
this new car park wasn't there 2 months ago. It's there now, needs a time limit put on it. So we're just addressing that. Joan?
Oh, I was just thinking I should clarify about the mobile shops or trading in public places, I think we call it now. That isn't up for review for quite some time, but councillors did say when it was adopted last time that they might review the hours of the ones just outside this building if congestion was an issue, because there was a bit of a concern that there might have been a lot of cars jostling for parks. That actually hasn't happened. Very few people park on East Street along the front of Bering Square East, but that was what was adopted last time, was that just if you had a concern about the hours, just for those ones out there.
So perhaps in the activity briefing you might like to write a little bit of a summary of what is happening out there.
Okay.
Whether it's a problem or not, yeah. Motion's there that we declare 120-minute time restriction for the car park on Havelock Street adjacent to Te Whare Whakatiri. All of those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next item, number 10. And the time is 1:34. We have Nikki Malone going to join us, but not until 2 o'clock. So it's only 1:35 now, so we may have to reorder things here. The next item is number 11, which is the councillor reports. Deputy Mayor Liz, your report. Is there any questions on it?
Mr Mayor, Councillor, you've put a graph in there, where do our rates grow? Is that just specific, is that for the whole country, or is that specific to our district?
Thank you, I'll answer that. So it was part of the LGNZ combined sector meeting, and it was through the LGNZ's refresh strategy that they were putting out all this information on behalf of councils to go out to the public so that people realised where their rates were going, and it's mainly in response to the high rates that all councils were kind of expecting this year. So it was just an example, because there were quite a few examples at the meeting, and I thought this was quite a good one that shows where your rates go, and it's not specific to Ashburton, it was just a general one.
I think LGNZ emailed these things to us all. So, and one that sticks in my mind is comparing your electricity bill to your rates bill. Both are very, very similar. About $2,600 for electricity, $2,700 I think might be average for rates, and comparing what do you get for your electricity and what do you get for your rates. A reasonable comparison. And you can look at insurance as well, and along the same lines. All those things, just comparing. Perhaps tells you whether you get good value for money or not. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Just under councillor reports, a working group was formed up at Lake Clearwater to work with the hut holders and the tourist bus operators. I'm just wondering if there's been any meetings of that group. I can't remember who was actually on it, but...
Yeah, Liz. Tony, can you just go off for a minute? Oh, sorry.
That was a Clearwater bus. Yes, there was. So we had one Zoom meeting that Councillor Brown and I attended, and we were hoping to get some feedback back from the bus company and from the Hut Holders Association, and there's been nothing come back to us since.
If you'd like to follow up.
Well, I can follow it up, sure. Yeah.
Yep, so we can bring it to a conclusion. Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Just in Liz's report, 11.3, the local operators networking event. Like over time, it's been hard to get the local tourism operators together. Are we having more success?
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Hooper and I were invited to that meeting, and the Mayor came along as well. There was a big crowd there. I think it was reported in the activity briefings last week about that. But yeah, there was a lot of people there, sort of ranging from accommodation providers through to Mount Hutt, Waipuki pools, restaurants, etc. And I thought it was a very well done meeting, and I think there was some comment in the activity briefings about that as well. But the officer did a very good job of leading that meeting and getting people's feedback.
So I'd like to move that we receive the Deputy Mayor or the Councillor's report.
I'll move.
I'd like to second that, please. Thank you.
All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Over the page, item number 12, the Mayor's report. And Local Government NZ Annual Conference is coming up. AGM, which will be in Wellington on the 21st to the 23rd of August. And there's a recommendation there for the Mayor and the Chief Executive, along with councillors, and Cameron and Wilson have indicated that they would like to attend as well. Be appointed as Ashburton District Council's 2024 LGZ Conference delegates. So I'd like to move that recommendation. Councillor Todd, Councillor Hooper. In discussion? Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. There's also a remit process there. If we wanted to put a remit to the AGM. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. What was the remit that we were going to put in
Polystyrene.
last time, was that regarding polystyrene? That's probably had its day, hasn't it?
LGNZ, we're going to work on that, and I haven't heard an outcome as to what happened.
No, the concept was well received, but it was wound into some other work that they were already doing, but we haven't actually, to memory, seen the outcome of that work. So we'll make a note to inquire as to where that's at.
Just thinking about the remit process, and the country has an issue with driver's licensing, getting bookings. Is that something that would fit in here or not? Or is there another better way to address it?
I imagine the solution to that issue will benefit from multiple advocacy channels. So it may well be that Government New Zealand's weight behind that issue would add some value.
So we should.
Yeah, it's a
probably
legitimate
form a remit then.
Yeah, it's a legitimate concern that could be expressed through the remit process.
Yep. Councillor Gold?
Yeah, I think that would be a really good remit to make, if you say that. And we're hearing that people can't get their book until sometime next year, which for a person who's just turned 16 and is hoping to have their restricted licence in 6 months so that they can go and get a job is not good enough. So I've had experience with this personally, with my daughter getting her restricted licence, and it's quite a stressful process, and yeah, not a good one.
Councillor Cameron?
The Christchurch City Council have said to the government that we shouldn't have to pay GST, or the GST we pay should be returned to us. Is that a possible remit option, or would that be something that other councils are looking at, or is that outside the scope of the remits?
Local Government New Zealand have, the President Sam Broughton was on news recently, they've put to government that suggestion.
Good, okay.
Yeah, it's with government now.
Okay.
So do you need a motion for that to do the remit? Probably should.
Oh, yes, we probably should, Mr Mayor.
So the would read, we ask the Chief Executive to write a remit for the LGNZ conference around driver's licensing availability spots, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and we'll express that as concern at the time taken and the implications, particularly for young people, but anyone seeking a licence to have to wait an unreasonable time. And we'll bring that draft back to council to make sure that you're happy with the wording we choose.
Right.
Yeah.
Moving.
Moving, yes, please.
Councillor Cameron seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Good.
Mr Mayor, may I ask him a question? And how long are we allowed to put remits in for? Like, when does the...
So as I understand it,
18th of June.
from the report, and it's just a good reminder, they have to be in by the 18th of June.
Okay.
But this council can't just do that on its own. So there's a process where you either get the Zone 5 support, or you get 5 councils to support. So once council are comfortable with the wording, then we will need to get the support of some neighbours or like-minded councils for it to become a remit.
And do we often only put, like last year we did the polystyrene, are we going to follow up with the polystyrene this year?
No, my recollection of the polystyrene issue was that it didn't actually become a remit because
okay.
it was already
It wasn't.
folded into a piece of work LGNZ are doing.
Sure.
So there's a whole host of processes before something will become a formal remit.
Just one addition to or an alteration to my calendar. 13th of May, it talks about the Rural Transport AGM. It is incorrect. It was the Rural Support Trust AGM, but I didn't attend it either. I was busy elsewhere. So if we just delete that 13th of May meeting note. So I'll move we receive the Mayor's report. Nothing else. Seconder, Councillor Wilson. Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you. We're getting closer to 2 o'clock. But Nikki is zooming in and not here yet, I understand. So we'll have to adjourn until she does come in. I think we've finished all other business and open part of the meeting apart from that. Or we are having David Matthews coming in as well from Waitaha Health, but not until 2:30. Right, and Ian Soper will be joining Nikki as well. So we'll adjourn the council meeting and come back at 2 o'clock. Okay, we'll resume the council meeting, and we're up to item number 10, reserve management plans. And item number 10, we have Ian. Any question, anything further to add to your report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, it gives the staff great pleasure in being able to present these draft plans to you today. As you're aware, there's been a lot of work gone in behind the scenes with these plans over the last 12, 15 plus months. So we've got a fairly succinct summary of actions and then a list of the specific recommendations that we require from the council to then go out to the community and seek the formal consultation responses from our community. So at this stage, we're happy to take questions.
Councillor Cameron.
Congratulations, it looks like a massive piece of work. Just one really, I've got a few questions, but I'll just ask the first one. One really nitpicky comment, actually. Page 108, you've got background, 123 parks and reserves, but then when you go into the actual consultation document, it refers to 121 parks and reserves. I don't know if that's important, but I just thought I'd point that out.
Thank you for that, duly noted.
Further questions? No, and councillors, you've already appointed councillors to the panel. Now councillors Macmillan, Wilson, Braham and Cameron. So they've already been appointed at the April meeting. So that's set to go. No further question, councillors. Thank you. That's good. I have a motion there. Would someone like to move it?
Yes,
Recommendations 1 to 5.
Do you want me to read them out, or you're okay with them? There's 5 of them. I'll just...
Read them if you wish.
No, I don't feel the need to. If you want me to, I will.
Take them all as one. Happy with that?
I'm happy with that.
And
Yep.
Councillor Cameron
I'd like
moved.
to move them, thank you.
And Councillor Braham seconded. Open for debate. And there is a lot of work gone into this document to get it where it is. So now it goes out for consultation, and no doubt we'll get some good feedback back, and the panel will make the decision on whether to adopt in the future. Councillor Wilson.
It's been a good process because all the reserve boards have been included, and I think it's helped cement them in the communities, and the land that's owned by the council reserves and all those communities has been further understood.
No further speakers for or against. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. I'd also just like to thank all involved, mainly the staff and councillors who helped put this whole process, this whole plan together. Well done. So out to the community now to be tested. So that takes us to the end of the reports. We have now from Waitaha Primary Health, David Matthews. And I think you've got a PowerPoint presentation, David. Yep. So if you someone help load it, or is it loaded?
Should be loaded. It's Linda.
Linda, would you be able to assist?
It's all ready to go. It's all ready to go.
Oh, sorry, that's just a minute.
Yep. Thank you.
So welcome, David, and you're our representative on Waitaha Primary Health, and you got a presentation there for us, and then go through that in questions at the end, if that's okay with you. Oh, just push the right-hand button on that machine, the right-hand side. That's it. Right.
Kia ora koutou, and thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you as your representative on the Waitaha Primary Health Board. So Waitaha Primary Health is what's known as a PHO. My background is in education, special education and disability services, and I always thought that those organisations were very good at using acronyms. But it's not until I've joined Waitaha Primary Health and been exposed to the wider health sector that I feel that they certainly own the largest number of acronyms probably in New Zealand. So PHO, Primary Health Organisation. So what is it? It provides primary health service to the community, either directly or through contracted providers. There are 30 PHOs across New Zealand. A PHO works in collaboration with health system partners, both in primary health, community health, and hospitals. The aim of its services is to maintain and improve the health of its enrolled PHO population. So each PHO has a population assigned to it through its providers, and the overall aim is to ensure that people stay healthy and get even more healthy. And the other part of its role is to ensure general practice services are connected with health services, other health services, to ensure a seamless continuum of care. In other words, to make it simple for those seeking medical support. So Waitaha Primary Health, it's a long-established PHO. It started life out as a Canterbury Rural PHO and then morphed into Waitaha Primary Health. So there's a long background and experience in services, particularly to rural Canterbury. Not all PHO provides services, but Waitaha certainly does, a whole range of services. It also supports a number of general practices across both Mid and North Canterbury. Representation on its board, it has representation from each of the local authorities where it has a presence, and this is to ensure that the local perspective reaches the board table, and there can be a sharing of information around local issues, which often are Canterbury-wide and also New Zealand-wide issues. So, in terms of Mid-Canterbury, the current challenges centre around the provision of after-hours services. This will come as no surprise to you. Staffing challenges, both in the recruitment and retention of staff, and the whole thing around capacity and funding. As you may be aware, the funding model for general practice is under the spotlight at the moment, and is certainly there is a need for significant change around around the model and obviously the funding levels. So what have been the responses to challenges? So this is from my involvement with the trust, which is now just over 6 months. So with our partner Pegasus PHO, we've coordinated a series of local meetings with health providers, health practices, related services, St John Ambulance, and also with Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand, to look at the various challenges that are confronting this particular district. And one of the very positive outcomes from these meetings has been the spirit of cooperation and collaboration which has existed at these meetings. The first meeting was a fairly tense meeting as the issues were identified and emerged, and obviously impacts on providers. But certainly over time we have seen a real working together spirit, and I really want to commend that to you, the way that your local health providers have been working together to try and find both short-term and longer-term solutions to what is an issue which is not of their making. One of the main challenges that confronted the group were the provision of after-hours services. Medical practices are required through their contracts to provide after-hours services, and we had learnt that some practices were struggling to provide that. And with the coming of the school holidays and Christmas break, there was a real concern that this district may not be able to provide its citizens with the level of after-hours service that it deserved. What happened was, through a number of meetings and research, there was what's called the Ka Ora service introduced just prior to Christmas. And what Ka Ora service is a telehealth triage type service in which people who require after-hours support, that's after 5 in the evening and weekends and during public holidays, were able to contact a health professional and have their health needs responded to, whether that was by referral onto a doctor through video conferencing or other facilities, or through some response from other health professional, or some general advice. This service has proved to be an extremely successful part of the suite of responses to the challenges facing this community. It's been going now for 4 months. I've seen the data from the evaluations that have taken place, and generally speaking, apart from, as you would expect, the odd hiccup with any new service that's brought in, particularly under some pressure of time, the feedback has been extremely positive, both from people receiving the services and from general practice, for whom it has taken quite a significant amount of pressure off their day-to-day work pressures. In terms of staffing challenges, and I'm focusing mainly on the shortfall of general practitioners, through the support of Te Whatu Ora, Health New Zealand, some funding has been made available for some overseas recruitment campaign from a well-respected provider in the UK, for 6 GPs to be recruited to come and work in the Ashburton area. And this is funded outside of the GP practices. Generally speaking, I'm told it's cost $30,000 to recruit a doctor from overseas. So that has not been imposed on the practices, and it is for 6 places across the Ashburton district. And in terms of capacity and funding, well, we're all waiting with bated breath for the budget announcements in the coming weeks. That will determine whether some relief can be made available for health practices and health services across New Zealand, or whether the pain is going to continue for some time. In terms of the funding model for general practices, it's unlikely that a new funding model will be announced at that budget, because it does require a significant amount of research and development to come up with a funding model that is fit for purpose for 2024 onwards, rather than for when it was introduced many years ago. So the final thing I would like to share with you is my appreciation for the opportunity to represent you on the Waitaha board. And in terms of my overall learning, the realization that all the medical services and providers in the Ashburton district, there is a large level of interdependence, which means that if one part of the system is under pressure or not functioning as well as it could, for whatever reason, that impacts on every other part. So if it's difficult to get to see a doctor, that puts pressures on pharmacies and pharmacists. If people can't get an after-hours service, that puts pressure on St John's, that then puts pressure on the A&E unit. And all these things are interdependent. Therefore, we need to get it right in every part of the health service in the Ashburton district, and not just one particular part. So thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, David. That was a good presentation. Have you had an update as to levels of success on recruiting in the UK of doctors?
My understanding is that there has been one engagement so far. This is not an overnight process. It's 6 to 9 months. So it's not going to be a magic wand, but certainly mid to long term, it is one of many answers to bolster the medical response in this district.
It's good to see something is happening here. And just one other question, Pegasus Health, where does that sit with Waitaha Health?
Well, it's another PHO within this area. It doesn't have as many practices as Waitaha, but we work very collaboratively with Pegasus. Pegasus has, I suppose, a bigger presence up in Christchurch and elsewhere. It's an interesting model, the PHO. There is overlap, and there is talk about some developments going further in the future. But at this stage, it is what it is, and we work collaboratively to make the best of it.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. It's very exciting that you may have one success. That's marvellous news.
One engagement.
One engagement, yeah, one engagement. What is happening with regards to patients that cannot be enrolled with a general practitioner in the district? Have we made any progress there, and do we have any idea as to how many people cannot be enrolled or access?
No, I don't have access to that number, but I know that it has come up at meetings. There has been some discussion around, there is a model of care in Invercargill apparently, which has tried to address that particular issue through nurse practitioners, and there's been some talk about that possibility, and we have a meeting next week, so I'm hoping there'll be some more feedback and information about that. So it is a worry, and Ka Ora is available. It's not just, it is, people who cannot get a service can find access to that. But yeah, this is a Canterbury-wide issue.
Thank you.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, David, for your presentation. The 6 doctors you're hoping to attract from the UK, do they have to go through any retraining once they get here, or are we reciprocal with...
So my understanding of that is the reason why we selected this particular recruitment agency is that they're very skilled at ensuring that there are as few loopholes or hurdles, probably is a better word, for that recruitment process. So they have their own sort of selection process to ensure that there is some fit between what the requirements of New Zealand medical and the qualifications, experience, etc., which they may have acquired mainly in the UK. So that has been an issue from time to time with requirements, and and standards are set which need to be met. But my understanding is that this would ensure there is less of those hurdles to jump than if we've gone to some more generic recruiter.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Is there any advocacy around changing the whole system right back where the young doctors are trained, and to make it more favourable for them to go into the GP side and then stay in New Zealand? So like reducing their fees if they bond to the country for 10 years or something like that. Is there any advocacy around that type of thing, instead of us always searching at the other end for people from overseas?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that there have been discussions about, and there are 1 or 2 examples of that sort of support to keep people. And there has been, I understand, an agreement to have a 3rd medical school in Waikato, which hopefully will focus on rural provision as much as general provision. But that's a 10-year journey. And what I said earlier about this was not of anyone's making. I'm talking about our local practitioners here, because it's very easy to put the blame. But the shortage of GPs has been well canvassed for quite a period of time, and it's a disappointment that we've got to this stage now where we're talking about a crisis and all those sorts of things, where maybe with some other planning and development, we could have minimised or reduced some of those pressures on our communities, particularly our rural communities that seem to get hit the hardest when it comes to recruitment and shortage of personnel.
Councillor Brown?
Well, thank you. The first part of my question was answered already. So, but we also need nurses and pharmacists.
Yep.
Can we get them? Because there's we don't have enough of those ones.
Well, I'm sure there's someone around this table who could talk about the pharmacy situation, but my daughter is also a clinical pharmacist.
So is mine.
The last time I heard there was 189 pharmacists short in New Zealand, and again, it's the same challenge to get our pharmacists where they need to be and to recruit and retain more pharmacists. I think fortunately there's been a recent pay settlement that may start to address some of the historical equity issues around pharmacists. Nurses, at our last meeting we were reminded that there is a cohort of new nursing graduates coming on stream very quickly, which is the result of things which happened 2 or 3 years ago, which will take some of that pressure off. But it also may mean that current nurse graduates may be competing for less jobs and therefore may be tempted to jump on a plane and fly 3 hours away and hit the Sunshine Coast. So it's very much up and down with all these recruitment processes, and it would be great if we have a more steady approach to it so we can take off the peaks and troughs.
Thank you.
No further questions? Thank you, David, for that update. That was really good. We'll have you back sometime in the near future to keep us updated on health issues in Mid-Canterbury as our rep. We've now finished everything in the open part of the meeting. We're going to just go into committee. Then we're going to, for a few minutes, we haven't got a lot to do, and then David, I'll ask you to leave for about 2 minutes and wait outside, then we'll have a cup of tea and come back in. So, and also, Jono, thank you. Someone like to move that we move into committee? Councillor Cameron, Councillor Wilson, all in favour, please say aye. Carried.